my friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Heidi and we do all the bookish things together, and today we are going to be going through my June reading wrap-up. I read 9 books in June. I have 6 of them here. The other 3 were either digital or audio. I just want to preface by saying June might be one of my favorite and most unique reading months that I've had yet this year, so let's jump in. I am seriously so excited to talk about all the books that I read in June for a couple reasons. One, I'm filming this video immediately after filming my May reading wrap up because I was out of town and I was a little behind on getting that video out. But when these are posted, if you're coming from my May video and you're like, wow, she's really negative, this video is going to change your mind. And it really just puts it all into perspective because May was one of the worst reading months I've ever had when it came to ratings, when it came to reading slumps. But June was such an amazing reading month. I found potentially a new favorite series, a novella that it just blew my mind away. I tried out some genres that I don't normally focus on. I had an incredible, actually 2 incredible audiobook experiences. June was an incredible reading month. I had 5 5-star reads, guys. That is crazy. And just looking back at my month, I think I really do stand by these 5 stars. It wasn't just a jump reaction. I loved so many of these books and I don't think I went below a 3.75 on a rating. Just looking at my reading journal here, so I read 9 books. My average rating was a 4.61. That's awesome. If you came from my May video or you want to go check it out, my average May rating was a 2.71 and I only read 6 books. And it was just, talk about a rough reading month. And so when I tell you I'm so excited to be filming this and chatting with you all about what I read in June, I am so excited to chat with you all. And I think this is just a really good reminder of how flexible your reading can be. And that has a lot to do with what's going on in the author world. That has a lot to do with what's going on in your world. Are you in a reading slump? Did you have a terrible reading month? That's okay. Give me the honest reviews. I'm very big on honest reviews. I love watching honest reviews. So if somebody's hating on a book that I love, normally I still get a really good kick out of it and I'll watch most of the video because I love hearing people be honest about how they actually feel. Nobody judges you if you say you didn't like a movie. So why do we judge people if they say they don't like books? I feel like I'm here to normalize loving books that you want to love without judgment and hating books that you want to hate without judgment. Like, it happens. So if after watching this video you're like, oh my gosh, she had so many good star reads, I want to see like a video where she actually hates a book, go check out my May video because let me tell you, I had some rough books in May. If you're new here, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm still relatively new on my booktube journey and I absolutely love this community. The fact that there are literally over 2,000 of you who are following along and actively like commenting and engaging. I see you, your profile pictures, your names, like you guys, it just warms my heart. I love you all so much. I try to respond to every single comment. And I'm just so happy that you found my little corner and I'm so happy that you're here. Let's do bookish things together and it's just so fun. With June being over, I do want to just say my Fable Book Club picked our July read and we are reading Beach Read by Emily Henry. I'm so excited. I haven't read Beach Read in a couple years. I didn't annotate back when I read Beach Read, but I've annotated all of Emily Henry's other books. So I'm excited to do a little reread. So whether you've read her book and you want to just throw your comments in the chapter notes, or you haven't read an Emily Henry book or want to join us, we would love to have you. I'll make sure the link is down below. I was traveling the first week of June, and so I did a lot of my reading on my Kindle, but I loved these books so much that I read on Kindle Unlimited that I had to get them in physical copies, and that is Dungeon Crawler Carl and Carl's Doomsday Scenario. These are the first 2 books in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I believe there are 7 books. They're just now getting traditionally published. Apparently they were only audio or only on Kindle Unlimited. I'm not sure. These were apparently written a while ago, which maybe is why I liked them so much, is because there's not a ton of pop culture references. But this is sci-fi like I've never experienced sci-fi before, guys, and I freaking loved these books. Both of these were 5-star reads, but I can't really talk about this one because I don't want to spoil anything. So I'm really just going to give you a little premise to Dungeon Crawler Carl. I can't even talk about it without laughing. When I tell you these books made me laugh so much, oh my gosh. So basically, aliens come and abduct Earth. At the time of this abduction, Carl is outside in the snow, in his boxers, in his ex-girlfriend's pink Crocs, which are 5 sizes too small for his feet. And he's outside of his apartment in the snow, in the freezing cold, chasing after his ex-girlfriend's show-winning cat, Princess Donut. What a starting scenario for a book. Like, honestly, it's like all uphill from here. While he's out there, he's trying to like catch this cat, and all of a sudden he just hears boom. All of the buildings around him literally just crushed like a can. Everyone's gone. The only people who survived this are the people who were outside of buildings at the time. And then as this happens, he's like, what's happening? And a screen appears in front of him. It's like, congratulations, you have been invited to this intergalactic game. You have like 1 hour to get underground and be part of this game. So the cat runs underground, and so he's like, oh crap, now I gotta go get the cat. And he goes, and now he's inducted basically into this intergalactic broadcast video game show. I don't know how better to explain it, but basically trillions of people all over the galaxy are following Carl and Princess Donut as they navigate level 1 of this multi-level dungeon created from things on Earth. They have to basically just like spiral their way down this dungeon, and along the way they get invited onto talk shows, they have sponsors, they have like a mentor that follows them. While it is so funny, because it is so funny, it's also a very human experience. We get to see Carl, and everyone else is just like diving into this game. They played video games their whole life, and like they're just living in a video game, and he's like, do we not all remember that we were once human and that we are human? Now we're forced to fight against each other just to survive, and we're forced to fight against these creatures, and his morals are like, don't kill the creatures, but the creatures are trying to get them because it's a video game, right? And it's so fascinating, and it only got better in the second book. I might have enjoyed the second book even more, and I really didn't think that was possible. This really is panning out to be a 5-star series. It was really well written. I don't want to say this was a palate cleanser book because it wasn't brain off, but it was a fast read. I was just riveted. I wanted to know everything that happened. Every paragraph, every sentence contributed to just the chaos and the hilarious story that is happening in these books. But it is also very human, and there are emotional times. It is a little bit gory. It's like a video game. And as somebody who doesn't play video games, I ate this up. This made me want to play video games. And it's just a very show don't tell way of writing, and I really appreciate that. I do have the physical copies, but they are on Kindle Unlimited, and I have heard the audiobooks are top tier. I haven't experienced them. I might need to just to get the full experience. I've heard amazing things, so I cannot wait to continue the series, and I truly could not recommend it more. After reading those books, I felt like I needed just a complete change of pace, and so I ended up going into I Who Have Never Known Men, and this is a really short, I think 150 page novella. I honestly want to say it's less of a novella and more of a philosophical sci-fi thought experiment. I was trying to get away from sci-fi after Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I ended up jumping into something that felt weirdly like a dystopian sci-fi. If you've seen The Giver or you've ever read The Giver, you know, like it's in the real world, but something is just a little bit off. That's basically what's happening here. If you are not familiar with the premise of I Who Have Never Known Men, these 40 women are trapped underground with no memory of how they got there, but they all do have memories of their previous life, except for one girl, and she is our main character. A main character who, by the way, we never get her name. It's a very interesting part of the story, and I didn't pick up on it until about halfway through when I realized she almost represents all of us. It's a very interesting feeling. But they have this incredible opportunity to escape, and when they escape, they go out into this world. There's nobody there. Their captors have disappeared. They find other bunkers a lot like theirs with people in them, but they still get no explanation of why they were in the bunker, who put them there. They actually don't even know if they're on Earth. It's a very interesting situation. And we just follow their lives. While I want to say not much happens in 150 pages, this story is less about what happens and why everything that does or doesn't happen is happening. And it's more about getting you to think and pick apart very little pieces of what's happening, because every little thing that does happen triggers immense philosophical thought, at least for me. Ugh, the AC turned on. It's so loud. I studied philosophy in college, and since then I really just haven't dabbled in books like that. I love them. I love the critical thinking and deep thinking, but this feels like a book that we would have and maybe should have read in my philosophy classes. I came away from this book with more questions, and no questions that I had got answered. And all of the questions that I had did not pertain to this book. They just got me thinking about life and the bigger picture of human existence and what it means to exist as a human who has never had a sexual or romantic experience. And therefore, especially because you have no name, she starts to become this sexually ambiguous character. She's very independent and has a lot of masculine traits, but lives surrounded by women, has no sexual identity or preference whatsoever. In fact, she prefers to be completely alone. It's just such a fascinating thought experiment of what does it mean to be human when you have no humans around you and you have never engaged with the things that drive humans or tempt humans, the vices that we have: sex, alcohol, drugs, money, war. Even war inspires people. And I'm not saying it inspires people in a good way, but it does inspire people and it drives people. Usually war is started over all the aforementioned things, and she just doesn't have that. And so she really feels like she is not human. And it's a very interesting position to put yourself in mentally. There's a really great afterword in this, written by a woman who studied this book and has read it several times. And she put it so well. This book feels like looking at a Dali painting where nothing is really happening, but whatever is happening is weirding you out. And it just gives you this weird kind of like stomach in your throat, dizzying. It's so bizarre. That's what reading this book felt like. She put it so well. And she had a couple other thoughts that I loved. When I wrote my review of I Who Have Never Known Men, I really only wrote questions. I don't think that this is a book that everybody will read the same way, but it is one of the few books that I'm confident in saying I believe every single person should read this, man and woman. This is one of those books where if we had read it in high school, I would have been like, yeah, that checks out, instead of whatever bogus we actually ended up reading. And I think this is one where next time I read it, I'll get something completely different out of it. And my rating might fluctuate, but this was a 5-star read for me the first time I read it, and I bet that'll stay the same. But I said, reading I Who Have Never Known Men felt like I was staring at a still life of a nightmare. The image so large that I'll never be able to comprehend the story in its entirety, while the moment depicted is balanced precariously on the precipice of devastation or enlightenment, but you'll never truly know how it ends, exactly like waking up from a nightmare. And I had just some random sporadic thoughts about this book as well. In the absence of men, a woman, or honestly more accurately, a female human with no sexual experiences, understanding, or alignment, can still do the following: survive, build carpentry, explore, learn to read, do mathematics, kill, love, philosophize, challenge the status quo, and think for herself. It may seem that the only thing women can't be without men is a mother. But we can see surrogate mothers step in and prove that this isn't the case. Being a mother is instinctual, not biological. Very interesting concept that the only thing that women can't do is have children if men don't exist, but we can still be capable of being mothers. Another question that was actually posed by the woman in the afterword of this story: does the absence of men make the world peaceful, or does it only seem peaceful to the women who refuse to explore the world because there were no men existing to push their boundaries? Would they have found chaos if they stepped outside of their bubble of fear? Would they have found hope, civilization, or answers if a man had pushed them to keep moving? And that might sound questionable, but to give some context, these women, they explore and then they kind of just give up and they just like live their lives. The woman in the afterword basically talks about how like women want to be settled. It's just instinctual. We just want to be settled. We want security. Therefore, we don't generally push ourselves to explore. And the main female character is pushing everyone to explore, and they're like, we're okay, we're just gonna stay here. And so the question is, if men were around, would these women have been pushed to finally find salvation? Or would it just never have happened if men are around or not? It's a very, very interesting question. Again, this whole book is just a thought experiment to the maximum level. You will not get your answers. You're not supposed to get your answers. All this book is meant to do is make you think, and think I did. If you want to see my full thoughts on this book, I came up with probably 15 questions that this book left me with, and I posted them on my Goodreads review, so you're welcome to go check that out. And I'll make sure my Goodreads is linked below. While I was reading those books, I was also doing the audiobook for The Let Them Theory. I've heard mixed things about The Let Them Theory and this author, but I feel like I got out of it what I was meant to get out of it. I gave Let Them Theory 4 stars, but I also find it kind of hard to rate nonfiction self-help. I don't really feel like it's fair. Like if you don't get something out of it, you might give it 0 stars and somebody else might get 5. So I felt like The Let Them Theory was specifically written for firstborn oldest daughters who also have siblings. And I was like, I fall into that category. Firstborn eldest daughter, type A, very particular, a lot of anxiety. Everything has to be perfect and everything has to stack up correctly. And I feel like the Let Them Theory was like built around this premise that these are the people who are gonna get the most out of it. Now, if you are the most go with the flow person, maybe like the stereotypical baby sister personality, you probably won't get anything out of this book because it just doesn't pertain to you. So I don't have too much to say. I do feel like by about the 50% mark, I got out of it what I needed to get out of it. But I did the audiobook. It felt like listening to a podcast, so it was really easy to just kind of breeze through. I did listen to it while going to the gym, which was surprisingly very motivating. So if you are tired of your music and podcasts and YouTube and you want something motivating and you're like me and a type A eldest firstborn daughter, try the Let Them Theory. But I really just think it's one of those that like, it worked for me. Would I recommend it? Maybe only to people like me. Another audiobook / read that I did in June was Broken Country. I am very, very excited because I got this cover and not the cover that we are all familiar with. If you've heard of this book, this is the Barnes & Noble cover and it was tucked in the back. My Barnes & Noble had all the new covers in front, like 6 of them. They were all damaged. I hate that. So I am the person who digs to the back of the bookshelf to find the undamaged book. Once again, type A, firstborn daughter. It's all making sense now. Yeah, so I found this one and I just was like, oh, I feel so lucky. This was really good. Broken Country gave me the same feeling that I felt when I was reading Wild Dark Shore. And if you watched my March reading wrap up, I believe that was, I loved Wild Dark Shore. It was just incredible. It kind of defied all genres and this felt the same. This book opens with a court case where our main female character is kind of being secretive about what the court case is about, but we know somebody's died. We know somebody that she loves is on trial. We just don't know who. Across this book, we have this woman who is experiencing loss and it's dual timelines. So again, you don't really know what's happening and you don't really get the full picture until the very end. So I'm going to be a little bit careful about how I talk about this book, but we know that she's experiencing an incredible loss. We know that in her past, she had an incredible romance with this one person and he somehow came back into her life. Circumstances have brought them together, kind of traumatic circumstances, and now it feels like she's trying to fight fate by being with him. However, she's also with another love of her life, married to him. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. If you like Scandal, if you like the justice system, like the court case and the reading books like that, you'll like this one. If you want like family drama and if you like dual timelines where you kind of sometimes feel like you have an unreliable narrator, this is so good. Beyond the plot, I did feel like the writing was by itself 5-star worthy. It was just so beautiful. Once again, highly, highly recommend this book. This was an easy 5-star read. This had me crying at the very end. I saw the ending coming, but I didn't. And it was just the tiny details that just took my breath away and left me brokenhearted, but also like, I was so relieved it was over because like the ringer that this put me through. Oh, but it was really, really good. And it's also just around 300 pages. So a really quick read, but chocked full of drama to the very end. My Fable Book Club read for June was 7 Days in June, which was perfectly chosen. And we had a lot of people recommend this one, so we ended up going with that. It was good. I gave this 3.75. I did not love it. I felt like it was a little drawn out. This is another book with 2 timelines. We have our 2 main characters who met when they were in high school and they were together for 7 days in June. And then we have modern modern day where they meet again 10 plus years later for 7 days in June. Not intentionally though, like it's not like they meet every summer kind of thing. It just like happened this way. So like every Monday you get their high school perspective and then their today perspective, and then it goes to Tuesday. So it was really uniquely written. I felt like the characters existed only to justify the trauma they went through, and vice versa. The trauma existed only to give the characters substance. Otherwise it would have been kind of boring. I just felt like the trauma they went through and who they were in high school, it felt like I was just reading two completely different books, and like who they were today. I couldn't read it and see that they were the same characters. In Broken Country, despite all the multiple timelines, it just really developed. But since you only get 7 days with them in high school, and then they never see each other again for 10 plus years, and then you only get those 7 days with them, you don't really see the development that happens there. But Broken Country, you see years and years of development, like 20 years through the dual timeline. It was good. It wasn't 100% for me. I just felt like the characters fell a little flat. However, the characters didn't annoy me. I thought the main male character was really cute. Like you could just tell he was absolutely smitten with her, and it was really sweet. The main female character was very intelligent, very well spoken, very witty. I mean, you could just see people idolizing her, and she was the moment. Like, loved her. And her daughter was also really funny, really smart, really witty. Strong women raising strong women. I thought that was so great. It was just the plot was what fell short for me. Sometimes you just want to read a book where like all you want to do is connect with the characters. You don't really care like about the plot. You don't really care even about the romance. You just want characters that you can fall in love with and have them be your comfort characters. I could definitely see these characters being that for some people. They gave me all the cutesy vibes. They absolutely loved each other. It was insta love. They fell in love in 7 days, never saw each other again for like 10 plus years, and then we're just immediately back in love. It felt a little rushed. This was one of those books where I wish we got like a book 1 of them when they were kids and book 2 when they were adults, because I just really wanted to see them develop a little bit more, and I just felt like it did them a disservice to only give them 14 days total of the reader getting to know them, because not too much can change in 14 days. I also have a little book club that I run here with a couple of my friends and family, and we decided to do our first nonfiction, and it was Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I'll be honest, I'm not a nonfiction reader. Sometimes I just have a hard time getting into their stories, because just because you have an amazing story to tell doesn't mean you're a good storyteller. Like sometimes autobiographies should be biographies in my opinion. However, Chanel set the bar. Her writing was so beautiful that even if you don't read nonfiction, you'll want to read this. Aside from that, her story is very, very important and needs to be told. I was young when this happened. I think I was 15, so I don't have too many memories of the court case. Chanel Miller was the victim of sexual assault by Brock Turner on the Stanford campus in 2015. And this is just her story of the trauma that she went through, it's hard to talk about, the trauma that she went through, the absolute manipulation that she went through by Brock's family, by Brock's attorney, by the judge who carried through the sentencing, her trauma of going through the justice system to get justice for something that should be a no-brainer, especially when there were witnesses to what happened to her. The fact that everything that she did was twisted against her, it's kind of alluded to that her race was held against her, the fact that she was a woman was held against her, the fact that she was drunk was held against her even though he was also drunk. She just brought up so many good points. If you're a man who assaults somebody and you're drunk, that's an excuse. If you're a woman who is drunk and is assaulted by somebody, it's her fault. Of so many things that happened to her, like it just felt like she just couldn't catch a break. The sexual assault is one of many things that happened to Chanel that are just absolutely diabolical and gut-wrenching. Her story, her tell-all was phenomenally done. I'm just so thankful that she was able to tell this story. If you're looking for a good nonfiction, I highly recommend Know My Name. Just know that it is very raw, it is very unfiltered, and she will tell it as it is. It's a story that needs to be told. Aside from opening my eyes to the actual case and the situation that she was in, she also teaches her reader a lot about what happens in the justice system. Things that you think should be illegal are actually legal. Things that are legal are very questionable. The way that victims are treated in the justice system. I feel very ignorant about what happens in the justice system. Feel a little bit less, I almost feel more ignorant now because now I realize just how much I don't know. But I do know more than I did before I started this book. Reading this felt like a fiction in the sense that it felt like the author was trying to just teach you you about what happens in the real world and what happens in these situations in the justice system. And then you get that gut punch of realizing reminders where you're like, oh, this is a true story. I'm not just here to learn about the injustice in the legal system. I'm here to learn about what happened to a woman. Chanel, thank you for writing this. Another new release that I read in June was Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I gave this 5 stars and it was so good. I did do the audiobook and I have a couple things I want to say. One, I think this is Taylor Jenkins Reid's best work yet. I haven't read all of her books, but I've read the Reid verse and oh my gosh, this just blew me away. This did everything that I wanted Evelyn Hugo to do, but it just didn't hit home for me the same way that Atmosphere did. I absolutely adored everything about Atmosphere. I think it was her best writing. I also think it was Julia Whelan's best performance on an audiobook that I've listened to yet. Oh my gosh, it was so good. But Atmosphere was absolutely incredible. The premise of this is Joan is an aspiring astronaut and she gets an opportunity to join NASA and be part of their space program early on in her career. And she meets a lot of wonderful people, amongst whom she meets Vanessa. Vanessa teaches Joan a lot about who she is, a lot about parts of herself that she's been confused about or denying. This is not my first, but one of my favorite sapphic romances that I've ever. And I do not think, I just, how can you top Joan and Vanessa? How can you do it? I don't think it can be done. I think they are the bar. I loved their story, but what I loved more was the fact that their love didn't define them entirely. I feel like so often women are categorized to be one of many things. You can be a mother, or you can be a writer, or you can be an astronaut, or you can be a lover, or you can be a genius, or you can be a politician. Sometimes it just feels like you actually would have to leave Earth to find an opportunity to be recognized as all of those things. So I just found Joan's journey to outer space very symbolic. She replaced all of those ors with an and. She broke the boundaries of being able to be a lover and a mother and a very successful woman in her field, a woman of science, a very respected woman, an astronaut, a woman who is seen as a mentor, valued by the people around her and her friends. She wasn't boxed into, you know, you have to give up your career in order to be a mother. You have to give up your career in order to be with a woman you love. This ability to just transcend all of these things, I think is why it's called Atmosphere. I just felt like it was just a very symbolic, very symbolic story, and to call Atmosphere just a romance would be doing it a huge disservice, but I will say their romance was absolutely out of this world. I just appreciate reading characters who actually feel multidimensional. It wasn't like her situations existed only to make her an interesting character. I feel like the world evolved around Joan and you really got to see her develop and grow, and it follows many years of her life, and I really love books like that, and maybe that's why she felt so multidimensional. I just didn't feel like everything that she went through existed solely for the purpose of making her an interesting character to read. I feel like everything that she went through, it was really just part of her story. It existed for a reason, and she was so much more interesting than one or two different things happening to her. Like if you were to take away outer space, her story is still incredible. If you were to take away Vanessa, she has an incredible story. If you were to take away Frances, she has an incredible story. Like she just exists beyond all of these things that made her who she was. And to read a book like that, to read about a woman like that, was very inspiring, very emotional. I cried. There is also like a situation that is happening amongst all of this. We go from like modern day and then flashing back in the timeline. And so modern day, something is happening to Vanessa, and then in the past we follow Joan's timeline, and it was navigated so beautifully, written so well. Honestly, I've not had a feeling like this from a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and so to feel this was really exciting. I think she really outdid herself on this. Very easy 5 stars for me. The last book that I read by the skin of my teeth, I finished it last night, the last day of June. I finished it like 11:40 p.m. It's July 1st right now. I read An American Marriage. I really went into this book fully blind. The reviews looked good. It was spotlighted on a table at my Barnes & Noble, and I was like, what the heck? Let's pick it up. The thoughts I have about this book, I feel like I'm still composing because it's so fresh. I gave this 4 stars. I think that I'm feeling good about that 4 stars. The way it was written was so beautiful. I just want to start there. I thought it was so descriptive. I thought the pacing was really good, about medium pacing. Basically, this follows a marriage between Roy and Celestial. The time period in this is kind of ambiguous, but they mentioned the 90s, so I feel like it's like early 2000s maybe. It's them navigating being a newlywed Black couple in America, and about a year into their marriage, Roy gets accused of the unimaginable and gets wrongly sent to prison. And for a couple years, they're writing letters back and forth. He's supposed to be in prison for about 12 years. With all of this, like, true colors start to be shown. The whole time I'm kind of feeling like there's an unreliable narrator. Like, I couldn't tell, because it bounces between their perspectives, I couldn't tell if Roy was actually innocent or guilty, which made it a very like infuriating read. I was like, what's gonna happen by the end? And the ending was like, whoa, a lot happened. But you also like get a little confused with Celestial as well on if her story is trustworthy. But just to spotlight the writing, I loved this line. Dessert was blackberry jam cake, a recipe passed from my mother to hers. To have a cake ready to serve on Thanksgiving, you have to bake it on the last day of summer, douse it in rum, and seal it away when the fireflies are still thick on the breeze. What a like magical way to describe a cake. Beautiful. Roy really, I had a hard time reading his character, and by the end I felt no sympathy for him at all. He is accused of RIPE, is apparently innocent. However, when he gets out of prison, he borderline does the same thing to his wife, and she very blatantly says no, and he like refuses to listen to her. She also says we need to use protection, and he refuses to listen to her, and she says no again, and he refuses to listen to her, and he manipulates her, and he's like, you owe this to me. And then finally he's like, I could take it if I want. I won't, but I could. If you don't want to be seen as a rapist, don't act like one. And the moment that happened, it was like a done deal for me. I don't care if he did it or not. The fact that he could, and the fact that he made it so clear. And so that was like a scene where they both tell it, so you get like confirmation of their stories. But then later he's like, it's just him, and he's talking about it in his mind, and he's talking about how he would do it to her and how she owes it to him and blah 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 blah. And then he's like punching baby dolls. He also forces her to get an abortion. He's terrible. My camera died. I don't remember what I was talking about, but I do know I have very strong feelings about Roy. Okay, so outside of Roy being one of the most questionable male characters in a first-person perspective that I've ever gotten, like, you always have like male characters on the outskirts who are like just bad people, but to have like be in the brain of one who's convinced he's not a bad guy but does all of these bad things, it's shocking to me. He was like, what are you in school for? I hoped that she wasn't getting a PhD, an MBA, or a law degree. It's not like I had anything against women getting ahead in the world, but I didn't want to have to explain why it was that I decided to cool my heels with just my BA. Excuse me? Her success does not threaten your failure. You're a failure because you're a failure. Don't be threatened by people who are more successful than you. And so he's just like hoping that, oh, like I hope she has an arts degree because, you know, if she's successful, then I have to explain why I'm not successful. Cry me a river. And then he says, my dad would be there. This much I could take to the bank. But for sure, only a woman can truly welcome a man home, wash his feet, and fix his plate. Like, he should have just stopped at like, only a woman can welcome a man home. Wash your crusty, dusty prison toenails. Spare me. And then he says, I always pictured myself with 2 kids, Trey and then a girl. You are thinking about your future children and you have a name picked out for your future son, but you refuse to pick out a future name for your future daughter, and so you just call her a girl. And then there's all these scenes where he like gets home and he's annoyed because the only soap that's in the shower is girl soap. Like, he's like, I can't smell like peaches and sunshine. He literally says that. He's like, but I can't use the manly soap because that's not mine. But the peach soap, God forbid, I smell clean. Good Lord, this man. As strong as my feelings are about his character, that's the point. This book was so good. It evoked emotion in me. I think the reason this is called An American Marriage has so much more to do with marriage and not just like Roy and Celestial's marriage. Celestial like falls in love with her childhood best friend. They say many times like, we're not married legally, but we're married in spirit. Like, we're married, we've had communion, our own kind of communion. Like, marriage transcends legal rules. In so many places in this book, we we meet characters who are on their second marriage, and they're very, very happy. All of their parents are, you know, on their second marriages, and they always say their first marriage, they like, the kids are like, I don't understand why you had to get divorced. But then now he's like, oh, my mom was so depressed until she met her now husband and the love of her life. His dad was so depressed until he now is with the love of his life and a family he actually cares about and will stick around for. And then we see Celestial get her second chance, and then like we get other characters that have this as well. I don't know, it's just like a very good thought experiment on marriage. There's also this conversation of Celestial's dad, who married too young, cheated on his wife, ended up with his mistress, and is absolutely in love with his mistress to this day. And then Celestial is like, I want to be with my true love, not the person I married. And her dad is like, well, you can't do that. And she's like, but Dad, that's what you did. And he goes, oh, that was different. I married too young. Meanwhile, Celestial married when she was like early 20s. And I'm like, how is that not any different than what you went through? And it's just kind of the hypocrisy of like, men can leave their wives and go start up a new family with no consequences. But if a woman wants to go do this, she has to go through hell and back, even if she has very good reason, which is why I think we get this character that Roy is. Like she has a good reason for wanting to leave him. Like he's very self-centered. He's like, I'm Roy Othaniel Hamilton, the Roy Othaniel Hamilton. Like, nobody cares. Like, you're up and like, you don't even have anything going for you at this moment. Pull your head out of your butt. Like, you're not hot shit yet. Like, why don't you go work hard and stop being threatened by women who are working harder than you? Like, she's like a go-getter. She starts her own business, and he's just a big dreamer and storyteller, but he really just doesn't go anywhere. I don't know. There's just so many characters we meet in here who are like truly in love. They experience like the most immaculate love, the most incredible loss of the love of their lives. And you really see like, this is love. And then you flash back to Roy and Celestial, and it's just anything but love. Like, it's just so toxic. It's scary at points as well. And you really feel for her, and at points you're like, do they deserve each other? But then it's like, no, he's 10 times worse. Like, I wouldn't wish him upon any woman, to be quite honest with you. If my best friend brought him home, I would have a serious conversation with her. But still, very interesting to read a book where you're torn between supporting one character and hating the other character, even though they're both the main characters. Not many books do that. Usually you hear about how terrible a character is through the eyes of the main character that you're cheering for, and this was very interesting. I'm noticing a lot of the books that I read this month have a lot of conversation around infidelity, what marriage truly is, what love truly is. Should you continue going for your childhood love? In both of these books, we have conversation of assault. In both of these books, we have conversation of infidelity. In both of these books, we have the conversation of, is falling for your childhood best friend when you are young justify infidelity in a marriage later just because that childhood best friend comes back into your life? Not so much this one necessarily, but it is the same concept of how far should you go with a childhood love when you are an adult and you should be moved on. And then this book, this book just, I feel like kind of, I don't know, everything that I thought about when reading this book, I thought about when reading all of these other books as well. Maybe there was like some unspoken theme happening in the books that I read this month that I didn't realize, but whatever it was very fulfilling because June was truly an incredible reading month. But those are the 9 books that I read in June. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and chit-chatting with me about books. Again, if you want to go see some very different versions of reviews for my May reads, go check out that video. I don't know, I had a lot of fun posting both of these, and again, they're so different. Having a reading month where I hated everything that I read and then having a reading month where I loved everything that I read back to back was such an interesting experience, but I feel rejuvenated. I am 50 books in to my 100 book reading goal for 2025, perfectly at the halfway point. I'm ready to go into July, and I'm very excited for all my July reads. I did pick my July TBR, and it is fantastic, if I do say so myself. So if you want to go check out that video, I'll make sure it's linked somewhere up here or somewhere down there. But otherwise, thank you again so much for watching. So happy you could join, and I'll catch you for my next video. Love ya.